This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Monday Mashup, brought to you by Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Shea Norling. I am back doing this weekly again. It's been bi-weekly. I know I promised I'd have an episode last week, but it turns out that when you're spending time in a developing country, as I was on vacation in Costa Rica, I watched all the games. I paid as much attention as I could, but the Wi-Fi was garbage. And getting a podcast out of there and into Detroit Sports Podcast, the wonderful people, the wonderful team, Doc, John Macaron, getting the podcast to them wasn't going to happen. And it broke my heart, but I was unable to push an episode out last week. But I am back. It is going to be weekly. I have some huge, really positive changes coming to the podcast in 2019, and this is where I want to start the show this week. Because I have some changes coming, because I have some ideas, some things I want to implement in the coming weeks, starting next week with a big one, I want to hear from you guys. Because you guys, the listeners, you're the reason why everybody at Detroit Sports Podcast, me on the Monday Mashup, all of us are able to actually do this and put these shows on. You guys are the only reason that is allowed to happen in the slightest. The fact that you listen, the fact that you subscribe, and we finally broke 30,000 subscribers right on New Year's Eve. And so you guys being as awesome, supportive as you are and listening to us, listening to all of our shows, help us out. Hit me up on Twitter, at NorlingShea, NorlingShea. Hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are always open. Fire mentions at me, whatever you want to do. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of, whatever it might be. It is open forum. It is the Wild West. Jump in my DMs, jump in my mentions, and let me know. What's the good things about the Monday Mashup? What are some of the bad things about the Monday Mashup? What do you want to hear more of? If there are things I don't talk about enough, if there are things that you want to hear more of, if there are things I talk about too much, or if there's just aspects of the show that you don't like, things that you want to see implemented. Again, I have some major changes coming. I'm really excited about it. I think this show is going to get a lot better in 2019 because as Detroit Sports Podcast grows, I need to grow. The show needs to grow. We have to get better, and we have to get better for you guys. And that's why I really just hit me up on Twitter, again, at NorlingShea, and tell me what you think. Tell me what you want to hear more of. Give me some feedback, and that'll help me to help you. Okay, so that part aside, today, tons to talk about. We have NFL wildcard recap. Wildcard weekend was crazy. It was hectic. It was awesome. It involved the Doink Man himself, Cody Parkey, doinking himself right out of the playoffs. I also, because I wasn't available to do it a week ago, have my thoughts on both Michigan and Michigan State football after their bowl game losses. And as I will do every week from now until April, the NBA Power Rankings, I will give you the 5 best teams in the NBA with a ton of movement over the last 2 weeks. It doesn't look anything like it looked the last time I did this on December 23rd. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, wildcard recap. First game I want to go with, Colts-Texans. Colts looked dominant early against a really good Texans defense, on the road in Houston. They looked excellent, jumped out to a 21-0 lead at halftime, and in the second half, completely sputtered. But I don't, and I have people I write with for an NFL website, Last Word on Pro Football. Check it out, lastwordonprofootball.com. Some of the guys there said, I think you aren't taking into account enough just how bad the Colts looked in that second half. If Andrew Luck puts on a showing like that, people were saying if he looks like he did against Tennessee, guys, one thing you're forgetting is the Texans and the Titans both have elite defenses, which is something Andrew Luck will not have to worry about when he travels to Kansas City on Saturday, midday, to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. He will not have to worry about facing off against an elite defense. Houston is an elite defense. They are. They're top 15 in the league. They underwhelmed in the majority of the beginning of the season at that 0-3 start, but they are an elite defense. And if you go by scoring, they're top 5. They allowed 19.8 points a game. Right there with Chicago, Baltimore, Tennessee, Jacksonville, and Houston. By the way, all of those teams have something in common. None of them are still alive. It's an offensive league, guys. But anyway, Houston, 19.8 points a game. It's an elite defense. It's something that Andrew Luck went above average. He went above their scoring average. Now he's going to go and take on a defense in Kansas City that allows 26.3 points a game. And, oh, by the way, ranks 31st out of 32 in total defense. Yeah. Here's the thing about Kansas City. Everybody's ready to crown them for the AFC because of Pat Mahomes. People are overlooking New England. They're overlooking Indianapolis. They're overlooking the Chargers because they look at the Chiefs and they go, Patrick Mahomes in that offense, nobody's beating him. They got to score 50 points a game just to win. And even that's not enough sometimes when they play a team like the Rams. I look at this team, yeah, being an Arrowhead means a ton. But when it comes to the playoffs, how in the hell am I supposed to pick a team that has the 31st defense in the NFL? 31st in total defense. And they don't get that much better in scoring. 24th. How am I supposed to pick them to win a playoff game? Especially against an offense like Indianapolis, led by a resurgent Andrew Luck, lock for comeback player of the year, dark horse MVP candidate. He will not win it and won't come close, but he might finish third. I mean, we're looking at an offense there. And by the way, the Colts defense is pretty good too. And the old thing in the NFL is defense travels. I'll tell you what, if I had to pick any upset to lock in for next week, and that's kind of the way I'm going to go through the wild card, give a little bit of recap on each game, and then kind of preview their divisional matchup. If I had to pick any lock underdog to win next week, it's the Colts. There's another one I'm really high on too, but if I had to lock one in, it's the Colts. They are the most dangerous team in the AFC to me. I've been saying it for weeks. I was a little scared of the Ravens because of that gimmicky rush offense. It got exposed today against the Chargers. The Chargers embarrassed them. The Chargers made Lamar Jackson look like a fool for the majority of that game. And really up until the end of the fourth quarter. I'll get to that game. All I have to say about the Colts, they are a scary team in the AFC. As scary as they come. This is a team that could easily, and I don't want to say easily because it's never easy when you're going into Arrowhead, but of all the teams in the AFC, this is the one, maybe except the Chargers, that I could pick to go to Arrowhead and win a playoff game. And I have a hard time, again, picking a Chiefs team with a defense that's that bad, with a coach in Andy Reid who's notorious for playoff failures, for clock mismanagement, for wacky play calls. I love the Colts. I love Andrew Luck. I love the way they've been playing. Quentin Nelson's been amazing. Darius Leonard's been amazing. They have a defense for once. I mean, this is a Colts team the whole time, the Peyton Manning era, had no offensive line. They have an offensive line. They had no defense. They have a defense. I mean, this is everything Peyton Manning wanted when he was a Colt. They just gave it to Andrew Luck. And by the way, he's playing MVP caliber football. So I think every team in football should be terrified of the Colts. I don't care about that second half against the Texans. I don't care about how weird they looked against the Titans. Those are two elite defenses. They aren't going to see a defense that good the rest of the playoffs. Literally. The next best defense that they'll see as far as scoring goes would be New England. The next best defense they'll see as far as total defense goes would be the Chargers at 9th. They will not see a defense as good as the one they saw against Houston. They will not see a defense as good as the one they saw in Tennessee. The rest of the playoffs. In Kansas City, absolutely atrocious on that end of the field. And by the way, Kansas City backed into the playoffs a little bit, losing, 3 of the last 5 games? They haven't looked the same without Kareem Hunt. They don't win shootouts. They don't win primetime games. They don't win big games. They cream bad competition, but again, look, the primetime games, the biggest games of the year, yeah, Patrick Mahomes looked amazing. They were fun to watch, but they lost to the Seahawks. They lost to the Rams. They lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Chargers. All their big games. Now they got the Colts, one of the hottest teams in football that's won, 10 of 11 games coming to town? Good luck. I love the Colts next week. I love the Colts in the divisional. Seahawks-Cowboys, next game I want to get to. People were like going nuts saying it came down to the Seahawks not having a kicker is the reason why the Cowboys won. No, because that would say that onside kicks are recovered often, which they're just not. The chances of recovering an onside kick are slim to none. The reason the Seahawks lost is because they allowed Zeke to murder them. They allowed Dak to play probably the best game that he has played all season. And they just didn't do enough early on. They rallied late. Yeah, the throw from Russell Wilson at the end of the game, beautiful. The touchdown, beautiful. They rallied, but too little too late. And really, without the kicker, they got both of their 2-point conversions, so they got 2 extra points when you think about it for not having a kicker. Still lost at home. Excuse me. But, I mean, I can't look at the Seahawks and go, the reason they didn't win is because they didn't have a kicker. Look at the Cowboys. They had arrested Zeke Elliott coming into that game. Ran straight over the Seahawks. And that's why this is the other underdog I look at next week, Cowboys at the Rams. And I look at the Cowboys and go, they might be the next closest thing to a lock as an underdog that there is. Because this is the matchup. If I'm Sean McVay, this is the matchup I have been absolutely terrified of all playoffs, all season. I don't want to see the Cowboys. Cowboys got an elite defense. Elite defense. 7th in the league total defense. They are smothering, stifling. They are good. 6th in the league in points per game. This is an elite defense. By the way, the Rams really haven't played good on offense up until that Week 17 game in Frisco. Before that, they hadn't looked good since before they played Detroit. There are people, Michael Lombardi included, who said on a GM Street podcast, Matt Patricia kind of put the blueprint out there for how to beat the Rams, for how to stifle Goff, get him out of play action. And since he's been out of play action so much, since they dropped from the most play action team to a little bit below average in how much they run play action, Jared Goff's numbers have plummeted too. And this is not a defense that they want to see, especially considering they have to go up against an offense with Zeke Elliott playing some of the best football he's ever played, rested after that Week 17 game against Tampa Bay, and you look at he's going to go up against one of the league worst rushing defenses. Yeah. That's been the Rams' weakness all year, is giving up rushing yards, getting murdered on the ground. They gave up almost 2,000 rushing yards all season. 12 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, this is a team, the Cowboys are the last team that the Rams wanted to see. And that's why I look at them and I go, this is another team where Zeke could just flatten them. Zeke could just run right over him, and that defense will keep the Rams from scoring enough, and the Cowboys escape LA with like a 24-20 type win. And we're all going to be going, is Jason Garrett is really in the NFC Championship game? But I think, like, I don't think the Cowboys are the best team. I hate their quarterback. Their offensive line isn't as good as it used to be, but it's still pretty good. But you look at, I don't think they're the best team in the NFC on paper. I don't know that they're better than the Rams, but they match up against the Rams perfectly. And that's kind of where the playoff picture, when you play a team, what team you play, comes into effect. I think if the Cowboys were playing the Saints, no shot. No shot they go into the Dome and win. But the Rams, they can beat the Rams. In fact, I would say they will beat the Rams. And so that's where I'm at with that game. If we keep going into today's game, the first one I want to get to, Chargers-Ravens. This, to me, was kind of an embarrassment to football, especially modern football. The way Lamar Jackson looked in the early going of this game, throwing the ball, awful. Just awful. And I don't really care about how he closed it out in the fourth quarter with that smoke and mirrors comeback. Horrible. Listen, the beginning of this game, the first quarter, that should, in all honesty, have been a fireable offense in and of itself when you look at the first quarter of that game for John Harbaugh. And that's the second Harbaugh to have a really bad couple of weeks, because that was one of the worst openings to a playoff game I have ever seen. The Ravens had 3 fumbles in 2 possessions. They gave the Chargers the ball in a red zone after their running back, Dixon, lost a fumble and got an unnecessary roughness flag that gifted the Chargers 1st and goal inside the 10. The defense played out of their minds, but the offensive play calling was reprehensible. The preparation was reprehensible. The unnecessary roughness flag to put the Chargers within the 10-yard line. All of this coming in the first 7 minutes of the game. 3 fumbles, 1 lost. Chargers get the ball in the red zone. Flag gifts them 1st and goal inside the 10. Reprehensible coaching. This for a guy in November, the team said they're moving on from him. They won't do it midseason. They'll wait to the end. But the John Harbaugh era in Baltimore is over. As recently as a couple weeks ago, they said they'll re-sign him. After this game, I think they got to look at that again. I think, and again, people will say differently on this now because of the way the game ended, 23-17. Lamar still fumbled that ball at the end. It's been his problem all year, not being able to hold on to the football. But the fact that you have a quarterback, because let's remember, Lamar Jackson started this game with 3 completed passes through 3.5 quarters of football. 3 completed passes. In 2019, he completed 3 passes in 3.5 quarters of football. You have a pocket passer with a history of playoff success, a Super Bowl MVP sitting on your bench, and you refuse to put him in. And I know the Chargers pass rush in Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa were eating that offensive line alive. But you gotta figure, when you're down 3 scores and you have a Super Bowl MVP, a pocket passing guy, Lamar's not getting you there. And he didn't. There was a little bit of smoke and mirrors with a couple blown coverages and a miraculous play after he escaped a sack and threw a long ball that just got over the tip of a DB. But the way that the Chargers played today, when they put 6 to 7 DBs on the field at all times, when they had 3 safeties on the field, when they had safeties and corners playing middle linebacker, they valued speed in their pass rush and they valued speed in their coverage. And it stifled that run game. And if I'm the Patriots, it's something that worries me a little bit because the Patriots have had to live on the back of Sony Michel. They've had to live on the back of their running game a little bit more than they have in the past. They've let Tom Brady get off with the running game a little more than they have in the past, really since 2013. When it comes down to it, that's what scares me, is the way that the Chargers were able to scheme their defense into playing 6 or 7 defensive backs in the defense at all times, pushing them up as middle linebackers, playing them high on the line of scrimmage, and just stifling a run game. The difference will be for the Patriots, Tom Brady has that quick release. Tom Brady has the ability to go through his reads if he's playing at his A game. And we only just saw Tom Brady's best game in Week 17 against the Jets. He threw for 4 touchdowns. He played a full game. This is coming off all this. Maybe his MCL is hurt. He plays a full game. He throws 4 touchdowns and against a 4-11 Jets team. He didn't even need to be out there. And he stayed out for 60 minutes, played an entire game, 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, played excellent. Coming off a game where against the Bills, they just ran down the throat of the best defense in the NFL. I mean, you look at the way that the Patriots have kind of gained an identity over 2 weeks, the way they've gained consistency on offense. They had a bye week. Look, when it comes to the Chargers, this is a scary matchup because of the way that they can play with all of their DBs pushed up at the line of scrimmage, the way they can make their safeties into linebackers, the way they can make their corners into linebackers, the way that pass rush smothers an opposing quarterback. It's as scary a matchup as there is if you're Tom Brady. On the defensive side of the football, I think the Patriots can be just as stingy to the Chargers as they were to the Steelers in Pittsburgh. People overlook they'll look at that Steelers game and they'll go, that was the end of a dynasty. That was Brady looked horrible, whatever. People overlook the fact that defense held that team to 17 points in their own house. Went something like 48 minutes without allowing a touchdown. This defense for the Patriots has tightened up. Melvin Gordon, despite how well he played in Baltimore, is banged up. This offense for the Chargers is not playing at 100%. This is a defense that can be stingy. The problem will be, can Tom Brady at home, where they've been different all year, again, they're the only team in the NFL that's undefeated at home. Can Tom Brady at home move the football better than he could against the Steelers in Pittsburgh? I got to figure yes. And that's why I have to go with the team that's been to the AFC Championship game every single year of this decade. I have to go with the team that, with the quarterback who's only one and done himself twice in the playoffs, against Baltimore and against the New York Jets, against elite defenses. I mean, we're talking about a Baltimore defense that was one of the best, and a Jets defense with Rex Ryan that had Darrelle Revis and a pass rush rivaling that of the New York Giants in the Super Bowls. Elite. And again, this is the matchup where The Chargers have the type of defense that can beat Brady. But I have faith in Brady at home. I have faith in Belichick at home. I have faith in that renewed, stingy defense that has broken into the top 10 in scoring, by the way, at home to get the job done. It's tough to pick against the Patriots when they play a playoff game in Foxborough. It's extremely difficult to pick against them. And that's why I kind of look and I just go, I think this is going to be a classic, and I think the GOAT does what the GOAT does and comes out on top. Next game and the final game, the Dink Show, the Doink Show, the Boink Show, whatever you want to call it, Bears-Eagles. The legend of Big Dick Nick continues to grow. Nick Foles is incredible. And I know he only put up 16 points, but you go into Chicago in January against that defense, just winning is remarkable enough. But the legend that this guy is starting to possess as a quarterback is unbelievable. This guy is extremely, extremely clutch. I mean, he led a drive against the best defense in the NFL, arguably, talent-wise. The stats won't back it up, but we can all look at that defense and know that's probably the best defense in the league. And Nick Foles led a clutch 4-minute offense drive down the field to win that game. Him and Doug Peterson are kindred spirits or something, because the way that Nick Foles has operated in the playoffs, in the absence of Carson Wentz, the way that this guy has come in and reinvigorated the Eagles now twice. A year ago, they were completely counted out. They won the Super Bowl. This year, they were literally dead. People said they aren't even going to make the playoffs, and here they are in the NFC Divisional, and they're going to travel to New Orleans. Drew Brees has never lost a playoff game in the Superdome in his career. Never. If there were any quarterback that I could say would walk in there and do it, it would be Nick Foles, because just this guy possesses every good luck charm there is. I mean, he's got the rabbit's foot, he's got the four-leaf clover, he's got the horseshoe, he's got it all. If there were any quarterback that I could pick to walk in New Orleans and unseat Brees' undefeated streak in that building, it would be Nick Foles. But unfortunately, the Saints are just a better football team. And the Saints at home in January, they're nearly unbeatable. And so as good of a story, as much of the legend as Nick Foles is and continues to be and continues to grow into, I think it ends here. I can't see a way where the Eagles go into New Orleans and win. There's no NFC team that I could see going there and winning a playoff game. There just isn't. We saw what happened to the Steelers when the Saints pulled that one out. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger couldn't hear the sound in his headset. It was so loud. What's going to happen to Nick Foles when he can't hear Doug Peterson relaying instructions? And maybe that's where Nick Foles, Big Dick Nick, gets the snap, drops back, and throws a heave, a prayer downfield, and Alshon Jeffrey just happens to be right under it. Or Nelson Aguilar. Because for whatever reason, with Nick Foles, that offense is so vertical and dynamic, it just works. But I can't see it. I can't see it happening, and I got to go with the Saints. And so there are my picks, and it made it easy just going through the games, and I'm recapping them a little bit. But those are my picks for the divisional. The Colts are going to Arrowhead. They're beating the Chiefs. Andy Reid, the one-and-done master, continues. I think the Cowboys go into L.A. They take down the Rams and Sean McVay. And I think Jared Goff and Sean McVay go one-and-done for the second consecutive season. I think the Chargers go into New England, and Phillip Rivers, who is 1-7 in his career against New England with 10 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. His only win came against him in 2008 when Matt Castle was the quarterback. I think the Chargers walk into New England, they put on a show, they get as close to beating them as they ever have, and it's just not good enough. It's tough to beat that team in Foxborough. And then the same thing for the Eagles. As good as they've played, as good as Foles has played, as good as they've been without Wentz, I think they go into New Orleans and they'll play a tight game. They'll make it good. It might be a classic. They won't have enough. The Saints find ways to win in that building. Sean Payton finds ways to win in that building. Made a blood oath with Satan to win every game they play in that building in January. And so I just think the Eagles have run out of luck. Okay, switching gears, I want to do the state of Michigan football. I want to do the state of college football in this state. Both teams, Michigan, Michigan State. And guess what? As far as my opinions on both programs go, they aren't all that dissimilar. I actually think they are in very similar positions at the moment. Yeah, Michigan's got all the 10-win seasons. They got a little more pizzazz in their recruiting classes. But I think both these programs have serious, serious problems that they got to worry about. I look at Michigan, and I'll start there. I look at a team, you look at Jim Harbaugh, 1-9 against AP top 10 teams, 1-3 in bowl games, 2-7 against primary rivals, 0-4 against Ohio State. You look at the way that the offense has been stubbornly schemed into this broken down, antiquated, dumpy 1985 style bullshit that nobody runs. You look at the leash that he put on Shea Patterson, the way that he refused to put Joe Milton into that bowl game against Florida when the game was completely out of hand and get his guy a little experience. The way that he refuses to allow Shea Patterson to go all the way into that zone option, read option type of offense where he really thrives. By the way, Shea Patterson, can we stop? He is not a special quarterback. This guy will sit in the shotgun, and if his first read's not there, he panics, he escapes, he runs, this is a guy where if you get him his first read consistently, if you're going up against a defense with very little creativity in their scheme and with players that just aren't as talented as the players on Michigan's offense, and you only ask Shea to throw maybe 20, 25 passes, he's going to look great. If the run game's working, if the wide receivers are able to get tons of separation, if they're going up against a lesser defense, Shea Patterson's going to look amazing. It's part of why he had the second highest passer rating in Michigan history. Because when he's out there and he only has to throw 25 times, you look great. But the second that he has to throw 30 plus, Michigan was 0-2 when he had to throw 30 plus times. In Shea's career, he's 4-6. And the only 4 wins came against nobodies when he was at Mississippi State. Or Ole Miss, excuse me. Can we stop with the Shea Patterson? He's not a special guy. He's not some Tua-type talent. He's just a QB. And if I'm a Michigan fan, which I'm not, Shea Patterson coming back doesn't inspire me a whole lot. Jim Harbaugh coming back doesn't inspire me a whole lot. If I'm a Michigan fan, I'm at the point now where if Jim Harbaugh decides he wants to go to the NFL, cool, dude. Have fun. I'm not going to sweat it too much. There are guys out there that you could get. I'm not going to run through the list of names because, unfortunately, your board won't allow it. They're not Michigan men. But fear of the unknown, going, we have to stick with Harbaugh because there's nobody else out there because that's the best we can get. If the best you can get is getting your ass kicked every time the calendar flips to November and December, sorry. And my opinion for Michigan State's not going to be a whole lot different when I get there. So don't tell me it's bias, and don't tell me I'm just having fun at their expense. If I were a Michigan fan, I would be pissed with what I've seen in Ann Arbor. You're not paying Harbaugh the money you're paying Harbaugh to do the shit that he's done here. You're not paying Harbaugh $30 million over 4 years to go 1-9 against AP top 10 teams, to go 2-7 against primary rivals. I've praised him when he made changes like he did this past offseason, bringing in Ed Warner, getting rid of Tim Drevno. Yeah, he had an amazing recruiting class, but I think that really hasn't mattered. Harbaugh's been pulling top recruits his entire time at Michigan. Hasn't mattered. In fact, the majority of the guys who went to the NFL were hoax players. It hasn't mattered who he's had, who he's recruited. The only times he's beaten Michigan State were when they were 3-9 and when they put up an offense this year that finished in the bottom 4 of the entire FBS. That's 129 teams. Michigan State finished 125th. Congratulations, you went into East Lansing and beat them 21-7. Or when they were 3-9. Yeah, the only time that you've been able to beat Michigan State is when they almost lost to Rutgers. You can't beat Notre Dame. You can't beat Ohio State. You can't beat anyone in a bowl game. You're getting paid $30 million for this? You're getting paid for everybody to slurp your coordinator on the defensive side of the ball? You're getting paid for everybody to slurp your defensive players because they play nobodies and then they get rocked the second they see a semblance of an offense? Every single year? A year ago, when everybody hyped up their defense and they got their ass kicked by Penn State, anytime Don Brown sees a worthy offense, they get smoked. It's not a coincidence. It's a good but very overhyped defense. There's a stubbornness in the scheming of the offense. It looks like it's out of the 80s. He can't win big games. And as soon as the calendar flips to November and December, as soon as it's bowl season, he forgets how to win. And it's been this way every step of the way in his career. When he went to Stanford, he left with no friends. When he went to San Francisco, he left with no friends. When he went to Michigan, he's now been here 4 years, and I have it on pretty good authority that players have left that program saying they built their relationships with assistants because Harbaugh is a fucking weirdo. Because Harbaugh burns bridges. Because Harbaugh doesn't build worthwhile relationships. Because Harbaugh is so much better and more superior and more zen and more whatever he'll tell you. Dude, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to make $30 million in 4 years. Your performance hasn't been good enough. Yeah, you can pump 10 wins this year, but when you're beating absolutely no one, SMU, Western, Indiana, 5-loss Wisconsin, 5-loss Penn State, 5-loss Northwestern, 5-loss Michigan, 6-loss Michigan State. You didn't beat anybody. Who's got it better than us? Everyone. As soon as this guy comes up against a good team, as soon as this guy gets to a big game, he folds like a lawn chair. Michigan folds like a lawn chair. And so if your idea of good is keeping Michigan and he's keeping Harbaugh around, more power to you. Dude, I look at this guy, no. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he fails to win the biggest games. You can say in San Francisco he made it to a Super Bowl, he lost, he got his ass kicked by his brother, who, by the way, is about to get fired. Then he can't get back. He loses NFC Championship games. Then he dips, just abandons them, goes to save Michigan, where he still can't win a big game. What's the biggest game Harbaugh's won as the head coach at Michigan? It's that first bowl game over Florida with Hoax players? You kidding me? I mean, really, what's the biggest game he's won? Don't give me 3-9 over Michigan State. Good Lord. Don't give me when he beat this year's Michigan State team that couldn't score in a whorehouse. He doesn't have a big win at Michigan. He has a bunch of big losses. That is Harbaugh. Don't tell me 5-loss Wisconsin or 5-loss Penn State. Save your revenge tour. Save all of that. This guy just hasn't gotten the job done. He has not done what they pay him to do. And so if I'm a Michigan fan at this point, I can give a shit if he leaves. And now I'll go to Michigan State because I'm kind of in the same place with them. In fact, in my notes, it starts with fire everyone. Yeah, that includes Mark D'Antonio. He's not safe no more. Look, we can say all we want about Dave Warner. We can say all we want about Jim Bowman. We can say all we want about how defense has been so good under Coach D. At the end of the day, you don't get to go to the playoff and then go 3-9, 10-3, and 7-6. You don't get to do that. There ain't a program in America that would field a top 15 scoring defense across all of FBS while posting a 125th out of 129 offense. It's time to move on, man. D'Antonio has done incredible things at Michigan State, bringing them the Rose Bowl, the 3 Big Ten championships, elevating them to a level where for what it felt like a 10-year span, they were above Michigan. He's done unbelievable things. Time to go. Wasn't a free pass for life. It ain't a retirement gig. If you stop winning games, it's time to move on. And that's where we're at. This is a team in Michigan State that had maybe the best defense in America. I mean, let me give you this number. Thanks to John Kirby on Twitter. MSU's opponents averaged 31.24 points per game when not playing MSU. That's above national average. When they played Michigan State, opponents averaged 17.15 points per game. Almost half of what they averaged against every other opponent. How in the hell does your defense play that well when your offense averages 18.6 points a game? 125th out of 129 FBS teams. How do you have a top 15 defense? If this team had any semblance of an offense, if they didn't require their defense to be on the field for damn near 40 minutes a game, that would have been the number one defense in America. But because Mark D'Antonio is stubborn and keeping his assistant coaches around, is stubborn in his conservative approach to offense that, again, is outdated and might look even older than what's going on in Ann Arbor. With this, we run the ball 40 times. Nobody runs the ball 40 times, Mark. Even the NFL has adopted modern college offenses. Nobody runs it that much. Nobody. Stop it. This is Big Ten football. Get off your high horse. Look at Ohio State. There's a reason that they're the only one in the playoff era out of the Big Ten that's won a national title. There's a reason they're the only Big Ten team that's won national titles in any time recently. It's because they play a Southern-style offense. They play a more Big 12, SEC-style offense. Who cares if you play in cold weather? Stop. Stop being stubborn. Stop saying that because it's cold, because we're Big Ten, we play defense and we run the ball. You had that good of a defense, and because of your stupid commitment to playing Brian Lewerke when he's hurt and to running the ball 40 times, you won nothing. He didn't get a free pass because he won the Rose Bowl. You didn't get to burn your house down just because you built it beautifully. It's time to move on. That's the state of Michigan State football. That's the state of Michigan football. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. And right now they're not. And it's time to go. It's time to move on. It's time to grow up. Start playing football the way everybody else in America plays it. Start running offenses the way everyone else in America runs them. Stop trying to run the football 40 times. It's stupid. This isn't 1940. The forward pass is legal now. Let's use it. You had the best wide receiver core in America if they were healthy. Run the football 40 times. What the hell is that? So yeah, what a lovely time to be a Detroit sports fan. What a lovely time to be a college sports fan. When the coaching staffs in both of these college football programs are abysmal. The good news is John Beilein's got Michigan playing undefeated college basketball, elite level basketball, and Izzo has done as remarkable a job with this Michigan State team as he has ever done in his career. This is a Michigan State basketball team with lesser talent than they had a year ago, with lesser talent than they had maybe 3 years ago. Maybe one of the least talented Michigan State teams on paper that Izzo has ever had, and he has them playing top 10 basketball, top 5 basketball. He has them in a position where they could make a Final Four run. I mean, the job he's done is remarkable, and John Beilein I will always praise. What he's been able to do, bringing in Ignas Brazdeikis, losing the guys that he lost in Muhammad Abdul Rahman and Mo Wagner, and being able to go undefeated at this point in the season, the way that he played Indiana today. That's the good news for college sports in this city is hey, the basketball teams are excellent. But as far as football goes, it's an absolute disaster. All right, one last thing before I go. It's the NBA Power Rank. I'm going to give you the top 5 teams in the NBA as I see them, and there is a ton of movement this time around. The top 5, when I gave them to you last time 2 weeks ago, number 5, the Denver Nuggets, number 4, the Toronto Raptors, number 3, the Oklahoma City Thunder, number 2, the Milwaukee Bucks, and number 1, the Golden State Warriors. Only 4 of those 5 teams are back in it, but there is a ton of movement as for their positions. Let's get started. Number 5, it is the Denver Nuggets. Number 1 record in the West, despite the fact that they have the number 1 seed in the West at the current moment. There are a lot of questions lingering in my mind on how long that they can continue to play at this level. Nikola Jokic continues to absolutely marvel as a big man. There's no one like him. He's a playmaking big man. He can get down in the low post, make outlet passes that you've never seen before, where he'll rocket a ball over his shoulder and behind his head to the 3-point line and get an assist. It's incredible. I mean, this is a big man who averages 10 assists. It's something we have never seen, the way that he plays. And he's playing much improved defense. It's been huge for this team. The way that they're winning games with a host of injuries, Will Barton, Isaiah Thomas, Michael Porter Jr., they are all are still hurt. So I look at this team, and I think they have a chance that they could get better. I also think, look, it's the Denver Nuggets. And the way that they've played has been impressive, but I don't know that they can continue to do it in a West that is maybe more competitive than it's ever been. And it's good for the West because it's not Golden State and everyone else. It's the Phoenix Suns and then everyone else. As in, the Phoenix Suns are awful and everyone else is really, really good. That's why 4 of my 5 top 5 teams are from the West. And while the top of the East might be better, the West is just so good. Number 4, down from where they were 2 weeks ago at number 1, the Golden State Warriors. They are not as dominant as they once were. Look, they got thrashed at home on Christmas Day by the Lakers without LeBron. They got beaten at home by James Harden. Steph and Durant are still putting up monster numbers, but they've lost their starting center in Damian Jones. Boogie's not back. Jonas Jerebko is not a guy that they can rely on to go 35 minutes a night. Right now, they are reliant on small ball, playing Kevon Looney, who's a true 3 at the 5, way more often than they want to. It's forcing them to go extremely small. They're not playing the dominant way that they used to. It looks sort of like the end of a dynasty does in the way you look at the way the Miami Heat ended. You look at the way the Bulls ended. Despite the fact that they're still probably going to go and win a championship this year, the cracks are starting to show. There's a chink in the armor, and everybody can kind of see it. I mean, that's the way the 97-98 Bulls looked. It's the way that the 13-14 Heat looked, even though they lost. You know, it's the way the Spurs looked kind of towards the end there. And now it's the way the Warriors look. They just aren't as dominant as they once were. They look like a team that, and again, they're still great, but they look like they're limping a little bit. And so that's why they've fallen from 1 to 4. Number 3, the Houston Rockets. This team made an absolutely massive jump, and I wasn't expecting it. A week ago, they would have been, or 2 weeks ago rather, they would have been fringe top 10. They're now number 3. I'm amazed with what the Houston Rockets have been able to do without Chris Paul. They've won 11 of 13 games, including that overtime win at Golden State. Their last game out was a loss. I'm not taking a ton away from it. You come off a road game in the Bay where you go to overtime and win. But during a 13-game stretch, they have James Harden averaging 39.9 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 8.8 assists on 41% three-point shooting and 88% free throw shooting. And if you're an NBA person, you know just how much James Harden gets to the line. If he's converting 88%, that's a lot of points. The Rockets are playing really good basketball. My problem is it's still Mike D'Antoni basketball. Thinking too much Michigan State. But that is the issue. It's a ball-stopping style of offense. It's an isolation style of offense. It's a style of offense that killed them in games 6 and 7 of the Western Conference Finals a season ago. So I don't know how far this takes them, but right now they are playing a lot like the team that finished 67 wins in the West a year ago, a lot like the team that finished number 1 in the West a year ago, and they're doing it without Chris Paul, and it's incredible. And that's why I might be a little higher than a lot on them, but I'm pushing them way up, because the way that they've played has been extremely impressive. And that overtime win where Harden scored 44 points in the Bay where they beat Golden State really cemented how good this team has become since they stopped playing Carmelo Anthony, since Chris Paul's been hurt, since they found a little bit of an identity. Remember, this is a team that gave up Trevor Ariza and Luka Mbamute. This is a team that kind of was new at the start of the season, had to learn to gel and mesh, and we all made fun of them because we all thought going and getting Melo was dumb, getting rid of Ariza and Luka Mbamute was dumb. Well, maybe they just needed time to gel. Number 2, the Oklahoma City Thunder. During the last 15 games, Paul George is averaging 30 points, 8 rebounds, and he's playing Defensive Player of the Year caliber on that side of the basketball. And he's shooting 43% from 3 on 8.5 attempts a game. By the way, on the season, he's shooting 38% from 3. Only Paul George, James Harden, and Stephen Curry are attempting at least 8.7 threes a night and shooting at least 38% on the season. Paul George is playing MVP basketball. Simple as that. And he's got another superstar beside him in Russell Westbrook who is deferring to him, which is extremely important. We know about the pains that Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant had deferring to one another at times. Westbrook knows he's not the guy on this team. It's Paul George. It's Paul George's team. And Westbrook is now allowing that to happen. And despite having the worst three-point shooting season of his career, he may be having his best all-around season ever. Russell Westbrook. continuing to average a triple-double. He's shooting 48% inside the three-point line, and he's playing the best defense he has ever played in the history of his game. In his entire career, never played defense as good as he is right now. He's added a layer to his game, and while it's really hurt his three-point shot, and while he's still chucking a little bit alarming at a rate that he's putting up threes, he's having probably the best season he's ever had despite that huge loss in that aspect of his game. Number one, there should be no debate here. There should be absolutely no debate here. And the name sounds crazy. If you haven't paid attention to the NBA much, you're going to go, number one, what the fuck? It's the Milwaukee Bucks. They have the league MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. The dude is averaging 27 points on just 17% three-point shooting. You can sag off him at the line. He will still kill you. He's one of only 4 players in NBA history to shoot 59% from the field while attempting at least 16.5 shots a night. The other 3, Kareem, Shaq, Kevin McHale. That's pretty good company. This is a guy, and by the way, Giannis is the only player in NBA history to shoot 59% from the field with at least 16.5 shots and more than, I'm trying to figure out a good way to say it. The stat is insane to me. You look at Kareem, Shaq, Kevin McHale. These aren't guys who shot threes. Giannis is the only player to ever shoot 59% from the field while shooting at more than 0.1 threes a night. That is 0.1 threes a night. Giannis is at 2.5, and he's shooting 60% on the season. He's got freakish length. He is freakishly athletic, and he dominates like one of the best big men in the game, but you can't think about him like a big man. You think about Shaq as the most dominant big man ever. He just lived in the low post and under the rim, and he would just eat you alive. Giannis, he can start with a dribble at the three-point line and move you into the paint at will. His stride is incredibly long. His length is so serviceable to his game and the way that he utilizes it. He can start at the three-point line and in seemingly 2 steps be throwing a hammer dunk in your face. He is absolutely incredible. He has the Bucks leading the league in net rating. He has the Bucks leading the league in offensive efficiency. He has the Bucks leading the league in effective shooting percentage. And they have a head coach with an actual brain and a pulse on the sideline. This team, the Milwaukee Bucks in 2018-2019, is as real as they come. The best team in the NBA as of right now. Honorable mentions just outside the top 5. The Indiana Pacers were close. Victor Oladipo's playing good basketball. They have 7 guys averaging double digits over the last 6 games. They've won all 6. Not quite making the cut. Toronto Raptors, same deal. They've kind of fallen off. Despite leading the NBA in wins, they're 6-4 in the last 10. Kyle Lowry's not playing that great. Kawhi has been a hit or miss on nights. You got the Boston Celtics. It seems like they're finding their stride, and then it seems like they take a step back. Every 2 steps forward the Celtics take, it's 1 step back. And right now, I can't put them that high. Right now, the Bucks have the East locked. And then my final honorable mention, the San Antonio Spurs. They've been playing great basketball. Pop has this team in a position that I didn't think they'd be in. And while they might turn it around and start to really suck, they're playing really good basketball right now. And they're shooting the 3 really efficiently, which is something I did not think at all that they would do. I thought this was a team that would live in the mid-range. But again, my top 5, the Denver Nuggets, the Golden State Warriors, the Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and number 1 with league MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, by the way, if you have a chance to see the Bucks this season, whether it's, I don't believe they come here again, but if you have a chance somehow, whether you're traveling, whatever it may be, wherever you live, if you can see the Bucks, go see them. Because Giannis alone is worth it. That team is unbelievable. Number 1, the Milwaukee Bucks. That's my show. Thank you for listening to the Monday Mashup. Again, hit me up on Twitter at Norling Shea. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of. I will take every single criticism and every single suggestion into account. I appreciate every single one of our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you for getting us above 30,000 subscribers. Like, rate, share, subscribe, review, whatever it is. Hit me up on Twitter. DMs are always open. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week with some very exciting changes. Thanks, guys.